Why holiness in the Bible is the key to spiritual growth and fulfillment. Have you ever felt like you're chasing something in life but can never quite grasp it? Like there's this sense of emptiness. A longing for something deeper. Something more meaningful? What if I told you that the answer lies in one word: holiness? Now, before you click away, let me ask you something profound. What comes to your mind when you hear the word holiness? Does it sound like a distant, unattainable concept? Or maybe it feels like an outdated rulebook that no one really lives by anymore? Let's challenge that together. Because holiness is not about perfection or piety, it's about transformation, fulfillment, and finding the truest version of yourself. We're going to take a journey, you and I, and uncover why holiness, as taught in the Bible, is not just the key to spiritual growth but the ultimate path to fulfillment. And by the end of this video, you won't just understand holiness, you'll see how it can radically change your life. I want to start with a story, a simple one, but one that hits close to home. Imagine a man who's spent his life chasing success. He's built a career, earned respect, and achieved more than he ever thought possible. Yet, every night he lies awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering why he still feels so empty. Have you ever been there? Or maybe you know someone who has. Now, let's step into the Bible. In 1 Peter 1 verse 16, we're told, "Be holy, because I am holy." At first glance, this might seem like an impossible command. But think about it, what does it mean to be holy? Is it simply about obeying rules? Or is it something deeper? Holiness isn't about being sinless, it's about being set apart. It's about living with intention, with purpose, with a heart that seeks what is good, true, and eternal. Holiness, at its core, is a call to alignment. Alignment with who you were created to be. And here's the truth, you and I were created for something greater than we can imagine. But the distractions of life, success, power, materialism, pull us away from that truth. And that's why holiness matters. It calls us back to center. Let's make this real. Picture a woman walking through the stormiest season of her life. She's lost her job, her home, and her sense of security. Yet, in the middle of her chaos, she finds peace. Not because her circumstances have changed, but because her heart has. She's discovered that holiness isn't about what's happening around her, it's about what's happening within her. I think about Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew, standing on the mount, telling the crowd, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God." What does it mean to have a pure heart? Is it about being flawless? No. It's about being authentic. It's about letting go of the masks we wear and the lies we tell ourselves. It's about living with clarity and courage. And here's the kicker, holiness is not something you achieve. It's something you pursue. It's a journey, not a destination. It's in the moments when you choose kindness over anger, love over hate, truth over convenience. It's in the quiet decisions you make every day that no one else sees but God. But let's be honest, the pursuit of holiness is hard. It's countercultural. It's inconvenient. The world tells us to follow our desires, to do what feels good in the moment. But holiness asks us to pause and reflect. It asks us to consider not just what we want, but who we want to become. And here's a deep question for you, who are you becoming through the choices you make every day? Holiness is not just about you. It's about the people around you. When you live a holy life, you shine a light in a world that desperately needs hope. You become a source of strength for others. A reminder that there's a better way to live. Let's look at another story. A young man grows up in a broken home, surrounded by pain and anger. He has every reason to give in to bitterness. But he doesn't. Instead, he chooses to forgive, to love, to rebuild. His life becomes a testament to the power of holiness, a life set apart. A life that heals. This reminds me of one of the most radical moments in the Bible, Jesus washing the feet of his disciples. The Son of God, humbling himself to serve others. Holiness is not about elevating yourself, it's about humbling yourself. It's about lifting others up. And when you do, you find a joy that no amount of success or wealth can ever give you. Let's bring this home. What would your life look like if you pursued holiness? If you set aside the distractions, the fears, the excuses, and said, I'm going to live a life that matters? What if holiness isn't a burden but a blessing? Not a restriction, but a liberation? I want to leave you with this thought as we prepare to dive even deeper in the next part. Holiness is not about being perfect, it's about being whole. It's about finding the courage to let go of what's holding you back and embracing the life God has for you. Are you ready to take that step? Holiness, the courage to embrace change and let go of what holds us back. As we continue this journey, I want you to pause and reflect on one crucial question. What are you holding on to right now that's keeping you from becoming the person you were created to be? Is it fear? Pride? Anger? Sometimes, the things we cling to the most are the very things that hold us back. Holiness calls us to let go, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Think about the story of the rich young ruler in the Gospels. He comes to Jesus with a question many of us have asked: what must I do to inherit eternal life? He's done everything right, followed all the rules. But when Jesus tells him to sell all he has and follow him, the man walks away, sorrowful. Why? Because his heart was tied to his possessions. What would you have done in his place? This story isn't just about wealth. It's about anything that takes the place of God in our hearts. It could be ambition, relationships, even our own comfort zones. Holiness asks us to make a trade, to let go of what's temporary in exchange for what's eternal. And that's terrifying, isn't it? To surrender control. To trust that God's plan is better than our own. Let's be honest, change is hard. Letting go is hard. But it's also liberating. When we release the things that weigh us down, we make room for something greater. I've seen this in my own life. And I bet you have too. Think about a time when you let go of something toxic, a habit, a relationship, a mindset. Didn't it feel like a weight had been lifted off your shoulders? That's the power of holiness. But here's the challenge: holiness isn't just about what you let go of. It's about what you embrace. It's about stepping into the unknown, trusting that God's grace will meet you there. In Philippians 3 verses 13 to 14, Paul says, "Forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead, I press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus." What are you pressing toward? What is your prize? One of the most profound truths about holiness is that it's a process, not a one-time event. It's a daily choice, a continual turning toward God. And every time you choose holiness, you're choosing freedom. Freedom from the expectations of the world. Freedom from the lies that tell you you're not enough. Freedom to be who you were created to be. Let me share a story that captures this beautifully. There was a man who struggled with anger his entire life. It controlled him, destroyed relationships, and left him isolated. One day, he decided to confront it head-on. He prayed, sought guidance, and made a conscious effort to respond with kindness instead of rage. It wasn't easy. He failed more times than he succeeded. But over time, something incredible happened. His heart softened. His relationships healed. And he discovered a peace he'd never known. This is what holiness looks like in real life. It's messy. It's imperfect. But it's also transformative. And it starts with a single step, a single decision to say, God, I'm ready to let go. I'm ready to change. Now, let's dive deeper. Holiness isn't just about personal growth. It's about impact. When you pursue holiness, you're not just changing your life, you're changing the lives of those around you. Think about Jesus' command to love your neighbor as yourself. Holiness isn't self-centered, it's other-centered. It's about serving, giving, and loving in a way that points people to God. Take a moment to picture this, a community where people truly live out holiness. Where forgiveness replaces grudges. Where generosity replaces greed. Where compassion replaces judgment. It sounds like a dream, doesn't it? But it's not impossible. It starts with you and me. It starts with the choices we make every day. Here's another deep question for you. What kind of legacy are you leaving? When people look at your life, what do they see? Do they see someone who's set apart? Someone who radiates love, joy, and peace? Or do they see someone who's just going through the motions, chasing the same things everyone else is chasing? Holiness is about leaving a legacy that matters, a legacy that lasts. I want to share one more story before we move on. It's about a woman who spent her life caring for others. She wasn't famous or wealthy, but she was holy. She lived with integrity, treated everyone with kindness, and always put others first. When she passed away, hundreds of people came to her funeral, people she had touched with her love and generosity. They didn't remember her for her achievements, they remembered her for her heart. This is the kind of impact holiness can have. It's not about being perfect, it's about being faithful. It's about living in a way that reflects God's love to the world. So, let's bring this back to you. What's holding you back from holiness? What's one thing you can let go of today? What's one step you can take to embrace the life God has for you? Holiness is a journey. And it starts right here. Right now. Are you ready to take that step? Holiness, a daily pursuit of purpose, peace, and eternal impact. Let's dive into this final stretch of our journey. By now, you've seen that holiness isn't a distant, unattainable ideal, it's a daily invitation. It's a call to live with purpose, to walk in peace, and to make an eternal impact. But how do we live this out in the day-to-day chaos of life? That's what we'll explore next. Think about your typical day. You wake up, rush to work, deal with stress, and juggle responsibilities. In the middle of all this, where does holiness fit? Here's the surprising answer: it fits everywhere. Holiness isn't confined to church or quiet moments of prayer. It shows up in the way you treat your coworkers, the way you respond to setbacks, and even the way you speak to yourself when no one else is listening. Let me tell you a story to illustrate this. There was a man who worked as a janitor in a busy office building. Most people barely noticed him. But every day, he showed up with a smile, greeted everyone warmly, and did his job with care and pride. Over time, people began to notice. His kindness and humility started to change the atmosphere of the office. He wasn't wealthy or powerful, But his life was a testament to holiness. Now, let me ask you, how would your life look different if you approached every moment with that same sense of purpose and humility? Holiness doesn't mean you have to do extraordinary things. It means doing ordinary things with extraordinary love. One of the most beautiful aspects of holiness is its ability to bring peace, not just to our own hearts but to the world around us. In a world filled with noise, division, and conflict, holiness calls us to be peacemakers. Remember Jesus' words in Matthew 5 verse 9, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." What does it mean to be a peacemaker in your context? Maybe it means listening instead of arguing. Maybe it means forgiving instead of holding a grudge. Maybe it means being the calm in the storm. But here's the challenge: peace doesn't come naturally to most of us. It's easier to react with anger or fear. Holiness asks us to pause, to reflect, and to choose a better way. And when we do, something incredible happens. We not only find peace for ourselves, we become a source of peace for others. Take a moment to think about someone in your life who needs peace. How can you bring it to them? Maybe it's through a kind word, a small act of service, or simply being present. Holiness is about making those small, intentional choices that create ripple effects of love and grace. Let's shift gears for a moment and talk about purpose. One of the greatest gifts of holiness is that it gives our lives meaning. When you live a holy life, you're not just existing, you're living with intention. You're aligning your actions with your values and your heart with God's will. And that kind of alignment brings a sense of fulfillment that nothing else can. Think about the Apostle Paul. He faced unimaginable challenges, beatings, imprisonment, shipwrecks, but he never lost sight of his purpose. Why? Because he knew his life wasn't about him, it was about something greater. In Galatians 2 verse 20, he says, "I have been crucified with Christ and I no longer live. But Christ lives in me." What would it look like for you to live with that kind of purpose? What would you do differently if you believed that every moment of your life mattered? This brings us to the idea of eternal impact. Holiness isn't just about the here and now, it's about the legacy you leave behind. It's about living in a way that echoes into eternity. And here's the truth: you don't have to be famous or powerful to make an eternal impact. You just have to be faithful. I want to share one final story with you. It's about a teacher who spent her entire career in a small, rural school. She never made headlines or earned a fortune. But she poured her heart into her students. Decades later, one of her former students, now a successful leader, credited her with shaping his life. That's the power of holiness. It's not about being noticed, it's about making a difference. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with a question: what kind of impact do you want to have? When your life is over, what do you want people to remember about you? Holiness isn't about being perfect, it's about being purposeful. It's about living in a way that reflects God's love, grace, and truth. So, here's my challenge to you: start small. Take one step toward holiness today. Maybe it's choosing kindness over criticism. Maybe it's spending a few extra minutes in prayer. Maybe it's letting go of something that's been weighing you down. Whatever it is, take that step. Because when you do, you'll not only change your own life, you'll change the lives of those around you. And that's the kind of impact that lasts forever. Are you ready to live a life of purpose, peace, and eternal impact? The choice is yours. Let's take that step together. Holiness is not a destination, it's a daily choice. A choice to live with love, purpose, and a heart set apart for something greater. Will you make that choice today?